Hi, my name is Don Rowley, and among my many talents, I have sent more than my share of pedophiles behind bars. I don't go looking for pedophiles per se. It's just that I am very knowledgeable about Japanese martial arts. I translate 17th century Japanese books into English, mainly about ninjutsu and martial arts. I know my subject. So when a fake martial artist come in claiming to be a ninja master trained from birth by some mysterious old man, I can see through them faster than Superman with his X-ray vision. And among fraudulent martial artists like that, the percentage of people that prey on children is much higher than the general population. This is not a fluke. It's kind of a central thing. Not all fake martial artists are pedophiles, but at their core, they all are decrepit, evil people in some way, and they will do evil if given a chance. From time to time, people try to tell me that me busting frauds is kind of a waste of my time. They say that my time is better spent doing other things, translating more from Japanese, and that, the people that follow frauds are pretty damn stupid. You can't help them. You can't help fix stupid, and that basically frauds are harmless to most of us. My experience has been quite the opposite. I have seen more harm done by fraudulent martial artists than just about any other group that I can think of. It's kind of a case of, the problem is when people talk about people that lie about martial arts background, they're thinking quick and simple lies. That's the kind of lies that most of us tell. We lie about, the kid's age, to get a discount at the theater. We lie to our uncle about, what we think about his painting. We lie about, having something on the weekend so we can get out something we don't want to do. Those lies don't last. After the weekend, we don't have to worry about it, about lying about having to help somebody else out. And if we are caught on those lies, it's not the end of the world. This makes it very, very different from fake martial artists that live their lives around the lie. They live the lie 24/7. If their lie is discovered, then their entire world collapses. Their entire image that they present to the world goes away. Let me give you an example. Frank Dukes. You've probably heard of the movie Bloodsport. Dukes is a guy that went to the writer and sold the story saying it happened to him. It's been proven in a court of law that the kumite never happened. The death match that was in the movie never happened. It's been proven again in a court of law that Frank Dukes never was in the CIA. His only experience with the military was with a reserve USMC unit as a lineman. These are all lies, and yet there are still people that believe him. Now, if everyone knew that it was a lie, what would happen to him? Think about it. His friends would turn their back on him for lying to him for years. He couldn't make a living because no one's going to learn his crappy martial arts from him anymore, and he's not even qualified to run a fast food restaurant. His wife would leave him. His entire life is built on a lie, and when you build your foundation on a lie, you are not the most stable character in the world. There's a debate among some of us, after living a lie for years and always being afraid of it being exposed, does that make you a whack job? Or what I kind of subscribe to, the people that would live a lie like that, they are pretty much whack jobs at the start. Normal people wouldn't take that risk. Would not lower themselves to live a lie. What you're left with fraudulent martial artists are basically people that try to project what they are not. Inside, they're weak, cowardly, small people. So they try to pretend to be the macho, think Master Ken. If you YouTube video, Master Ken, that kind of image, that's what they try to present. Again, most of the time they can't even stop with just trying to pretend to be a martial arts master. You've usually got, again, like with Frank Dukes, the CIA, elite military units, stuff like that. They all kind of go together, the macho image that they project, because inside they are weak and cowardly and small. And weak, cowardly, and small people, if you give them a chance, will hurt you. Now, I'm putting this up and I'm filming this where I am for a reason. This is a Mormon church in Colorado Springs. I'm putting this video up on September 28th. On September 28th, 2014, a man named Dan Harmon, who claimed to be a ninja master, hung himself. The short version is, Dan Harmon died because he beat up women. Now, it was a few years after I moved back to Colorado from Japan that I became aware of Dan Harmon. People sent me links to his website and his videos. And I originally started believing the same thing that people are telling me now. I looked at his stuff and thought that only the most stupid people would follow him. He was so out there with his stupid outfits and his stupid techniques and all that I thought only the most stupid people would follow him, and nobody would listen to him if he talked about history. And really, when I started out, that was my main problem with frauds, is that they don't become frauds because they don't want attention. They want attention. And to get attention, they've got to keep talking. They've got to be the center of attention. And they have no idea what they are talking about. That doesn't stop them. They keep talking, they keep putting BS out there, and people like me have to come along and clean up if we can. There's a lot of stuff that you probably believe that can be traced back to a lie spread by a fake martial artist. Case in point, not too long ago, Frank Dukes again was talking about the Shadow Wars, the ninjas, the Shadow Wars, the Kagemusha. Well, I've got a problem with that. Kagemusha does literally translate as Shadow Warriors, but it had nothing to do with ninjutsu. The Kagemusha were basically body doubles, put in armor of a general, so that if anyone was trying to assassinate the general on the battlefield, they would shoot the body double rather than the actual general. Nothing to do with ninjutsu. Again, as an example of someone that's a fake and knows nothing of what he's talking about, is flapping his lips more than he should. And that's what I was looking into with frauds back then. I looked at Dan Harmon stuff and I thought, oh God, not worth my time. Not worth it. Well, that was a lesson for me, because it later proved to me that fakes are not harmless. Now, fast forward a few years after that, and it turns out one of his students isn't as stupid as I would think. He didn't get too deep into it. His name was Dustin. And as soon as he started training with Dan, he started realizing this isn't real. This isn't really panning out. There's too many discrepancies. So he reached out to a friend of mine to look into Dan's background. Of course, this friend of mine knew I lived in Colorado Springs, reached out to me. It turns out that Dan Harmon was born Daniel Rice. He changed his last name from Rice to Harmon to make it harder for people to look up his long history of arrests and convictions. Dan wasn't arrested for things like knocking over banks or shooting it out with rival gangs or anything like that. All of his arrests and such were for things like domestic violence, threatening the wives of ex-wives, stalking them, breaking restraining orders. Kind of seeing a pattern here. Dan was a very small person inside. He was cowardly, weak, and a complete waste of oxygen. To make himself feel more powerful, he came up with this lie of being a ninjutsu master. But another way that he made himself feel powerful was terrorizing people weaker than him. In that case, his domestic partners. Well, so that, we found out the history, we told the student, and he kind of started distancing himself from Dan Harmon. When he moved to an apartment and didn't tell Dan where he lived, things like that. So, but of course, he kept watching what Dan was doing. A few years after that, a few years ago, Dan put up a picture that he claimed was he and his teacher, Honzawa Sensei, in front of Honzawa's law office in Tokyo. Well, Dan wasn't too smart. He didn't think things through. There's already a picture of the same Japanese guy on his website in his apartment in Colorado Springs, and he gave the name of the guy as Charles Sakai, not Honzawa, a guy named Charles Sakai. I looked at the picture and I realized Sekai, I know Japanese, and I know that Sekai is not a Japanese name, but Sakai is. S-A-K-A-I. So I looked up Charles Sakai on Charles Sakai, Colorado Springs, and sure enough, I got a few hits. I even got a video of Charles Sakai giving a speech. It turns out Charles Sakai was a guy that helped out people, a lot of people, who died in 2012. This kind of made Dustin mad. I mean, you think about it, someone trying to help you, by being a counselor, and you use him then to spread your lies. He didn't like that. So he found out the location, the actual location, and it was here. It was this church. As soon as the picture came up online, and people started posting pictures proving that it was in Colorado Springs and not Tokyo, well, about that time, Dan Harmon started going a little nuts. He started stalking Dustin, trying to slander him. He put up all the personal information he could find up on the internet in an attempt to dox Dustin. He eventually went on and got booted for a while from Facebook by talking about how he could show up at where Dustin worked and slitting his throat. Oh yeah, fakes are harmless, right? Eventually, Dan made the mistake of slapping his current girlfriend. He slapped her. He did not put her in the hospital. Domestic abusers rarely do that. They escalate. They start with something like a slap. And after he slapped her, he did what domestic abusers did. He started promising things. Oh, it was just a fluke. It'll never happen again. I promise. Don't leave. Don't leave. If you don't leave, I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't leave. Well, she left. Dan Harmon's last act on earth was a petty case of revenge. He hung himself in their apartment so that when she came back to get her stuff, she would be the one to find the body and live with the guilt of it for the rest of her life. Thankfully, it was the police that found his body, and I certainly hope that she is getting on with her life without feeling any sort of guilt that monster wanted her to feel. Again, this is not the only case. I can give you example for everything from making false accusations to stalking to sending people to do violence against their critics. Fake martial artists are not harmless. Okay, and yes, I will expose them. This is, if you're trying to tell me that better things to do with my time, I want to tell you another story. A story about the Konigun. I had a rather large part, in getting a large majority of the senior instructors to leave the Konigun. Short version, I was debating them and I was punching holes in their story, and I was telling them that Bryce Dallas, the guy that was the head of the Konigun, was going to tell them this and was going to tell them that, and wasn't going to go on in public to say these things, but use them as cutouts. And whenever I shot down one of their stories, because I knew history and they didn't, that he would tell them that he heard them wrong. So they started comparing notes, realizing that they weren't the only ones saying something wrong, and a whole lot of them just left all at once. At that point, when her father had distanced himself from Bryce Dallas, one of the members' daughters came forward and admitted that for years Bryce Dallas had been molesting her. Okay, so what we have is that I helped a child get away from her abuser. If you're going to tell me that I'm wasting my time by exposing frauds, I am going to throw that right back in your face. There is a girl out there that stopped being molested partially because of me. Right now, there is a guy in jail named Ron Collins that I helped put there. And in his trial, more and more information is being put out and being made public that shows that he was building himself up to go on a mass killing spree at some point. I helped put him behind jail. I helped prevent that mass killing spree. You're not going to tell me that exposing frauds is a waste of my time. I tell you this. If you find someone that lies about their martial arts experience, claiming to live in Tokyo and train under a ninja master when he never left the United States, stay away, run away. Do not associate with them, because at the core of all frauds is a vicious, evil, small person that is quite capable of harming people they think they can harm. It is best to just stay away. Stay safe.